Let's just say there is a fight and there is one group which has come together to fight against all the individuals which are standing. And that group says if any of the individuals do anything into the individual of the particular group, we are coming together and fighting all of these. In this context, what will be a wise idea? A wise idea would be that individuals also come together into a group to fight this particular group. And that is exactly what we are going to see in the global strategic theatre as of now. Where we were talking about Islamic NATO, we are seeing a clear formation of Mediterranean Quad, which is also inviting India to come in and join forces so as to ensure that the counter geometry, especially in West Asia and Eastern Europe, is maintained. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajram and Ravi's Splash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to understand and talk about Mediterranean Quad. Why it has come into existence, what are the strategic things outlaid in West Asia and also Eastern Europe that has led to formation of this, where does India stand, why they are asking India to come and join this, and also we will be getting into that what are the implications of such counter geometry which is taking place in this region. So let us start with understanding that what exactly has happened, what is the news. The news is that there is this grouping that is of Greece, Cyprus and Israel, and they have invited India to come and join them in the model of 3+1 partnership so as to ensure a counterbalance to the grouping that is coming up as Islamic NATO. So when we are talking about Islamic NATO, we have to understand it is the grouping of Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. It was the initial defense pact, defense agreement between them. Later interest was shown from end of Turkey, and Turkey also came into this trilateral agreement which was initially bilateral. Now, if you want to understand everything about Islamic NATO, how it has been forming, what is the backdrop and how it might be a problem for India, everything that has been covered in detail, you can go and watch that video in Flash News. And now we will be moving towards understanding more about Mediterranean Quad. So when we are talking about Mediterranean Quad, in this context, I mentioned three countries, Greece, Cyprus and also Israel. Now you have to look at these three countries and the role they play in the Mediterranean region with the context, the kind of relationship that India enjoys. In this, I would like to remind you, in the year 2025, after Operation Sindoor and Pahalgam attack, Prime Minister visited Cyprus. Why? It is a small island nation. It was to ensure and give a strategic message to Turkey that we are also present in and around your backyard, because Turkey was the one which was facilitating Pakistan, which was standing strong with Pakistan in all of this narrative. If you talk about Greece, we have had very deep strategic defense engagement with them for the longest time. And when we are talking about Israel, it goes without saying that yes, Israel stands as one of our strongest defense partners till date. So when we are looking at this grouping, India being invited to this, India seems like a definite choice in this context, but this also tells us one very important thing, that India is not seen only in the context of South Asia. India is not anymore just a regional player, but rather it has become an important player of the global strategic theatre across. Now to understand this in detail, let us try to break it down and try to understand the scenario in the Mediterranean region itself, that why this region matters so much. So first we have to understand, when we are talking about Mediterranean region, we have Eastern Europe in the picture, we have West Asia in the picture, and then we also have Africa in the picture. In this context, first thing that makes this region immensely important is the energy economy that goes across this region. Biggest producers of oil and gas are situated right here in West Asia. It's not about just energy economies, but also the choke points. If we are talking about Suez Canal, if we are talking about Bab el Mandeb here, and we are speaking of Strait of Hormuz. All of these are important energy choke points. So, any particular country or a grouping which holds coordination and influence over this region has also influence over the energy, has also influence over the trade, has influence over the energy choke points as well. And most importantly, if you talk about two big continents in this context, that is Asia on one side and Europe on one side, this is the main artery which is connecting both of these, right. So, we get to see this is something, this region, Mediterranean region is something that is economically very important, and the influence over this economically important region is very important. But in the same context, we also have to understand that this whole region as of now remains fragmented, and it is laden with crisis, it is laden with disputes, be it Iran, be it the Saudi UAE conflict, be it whatever is happening in Yemen. So, this region is in absolute fragmentation as of now. Furthermore, the most strongest conflict that we are seeing as of now is between Iran and Israel, and which is intensifying. Now, when we talk about the stabilizing forces, which were usually the external powers, in this context, we could talk about US. US has multiple bases across West Asian region, and then Israel is the permanent ally with US. So, US is least interested in this context. They are only interested in energy and resources. They are not looking towards stability. Then Russia is already occupied in Ukraine, and China has already invested heavily economically here. So, the protection of this region becomes important for the members which are present there. Another thing that I would like to add, that Turkey here in the recent times has been trying to strategically position itself so as to ensure that Turkey has the influence over the region. Basically, Turkey is trying to go back to the times of Ottoman Empire, where it had the strongholds across the region. Now, going back to the point that it comes to the members of this very region to make sure that the stability is present. How that will be done? So, for this context, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan came together through a bilateral defense agreement, and they based it on the most important, that is Article 5 of NATO, that says an attack on one will be considered an attack on other. In this context, they came together. Now, after this, Turkey also decided, because this was a strong group that seemed to be in making, Turkey said we are also interested, we want to join, and we will make sure that this particular region has our influence, and the name was given Islamic NATO. It has been called Islamic NATO because of the main provision that one attack on one will be considered an attack on other. So, we saw a grouping emerge in this region where it had the financial backing of the Saudi Arabia, it had the nuclear deterrence of Pakistan, and it also had the Turkey's military expertise. Now, this new axis and the alignment that was forming on the basis of collective defense. Article 5 of NATO again, correct? In this context, it was very important to bring a counterweight, and when the counterweight has to come, it was Greece, Cyprus and also Israel which decided to come into a grouping, and they have also gone ahead and invited India so as to make a quad replica. One quad we are running for the security of Indo-Pacific. They are pitching a Mediterranean quad so as to ensure a counterweight to Islamic NATO, so that their influence is not the one which looks and monitors the West Asian and the Eastern European region. Now, the question is, why specifically these three countries? So, when we are going back to this particular map, you will see that if you are talking about Turkey, in this context, Greece is right here, Cyprus is right here. They have had territorial and maritime disputes with Turkey. Now, in this context, they would not enjoy the Turkish assertiveness in this region. And when we are talking about Israel, which is right here, which is exposed in terms of Eastern Mediterranean Sea, in terms of security, the threats are immense here. So all three of them have a very common cause to stand up against Turkey and the alliance that Turkey is trying to build. And that is why we get to see Mediterranean Quad emerging. Now when we are looking at Mediterranean Quad, we have to understand in this context why two important other countries are being brought in. Why India and why UAE? India, you have to understand, has changed the game in terms of diplomacy in recent years. It is their neutral, non-assertiveness and also non-interventionist behavior that has given them this advantage. Apart from that, India also has used strategic autonomy as a diplomatic leverage. That means if India has ties with, let's just say, Saudi Arabia and also Greece, then India can always work as a back channel. You will have a very fair clarity. You can go and watch this particular video where you will understand that why UAE all of a sudden has decided that it needs India. I am talking about the recent visit by the UAE president to India just for 3 hours. It was not ceremonial, it was of great strategic significance. So that will give you an insight that how India has become important for the world and especially for the countries in the West Asia. Now that is why India is wanted, because India enjoys great ties with Greece, Cyprus and also Israel. But at the same time, India gives the diplomatic leverages, India gives the image. That is another gain from India coming into the picture. So the diplomatic gain that Mediterranean Quad will have with India's coming is much, and that is why India is needed. Other than that, why UAE is in picture? UAE is in picture because of the rift between UAE and Saudi Arabia. One good example right now that we are seeing is in Yemen. So this rift is another reason that Mediterranean Quad wants UAE to come into the picture as a balanced anchor from this very region itself. Now I hope you have a fair idea that what exactly is happening in the West Asian Eastern European region. Islamic NATO, Mediterranean Quad, what is the backstory to it? Now we will be moving on to understand that what exactly this will do for India. Is it good, is it bad or is it ugly? For India, we have to consider both sides. So if we talk about the risks at our hand, yes, there are risks, because if we are going to enter a group which is against Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and also Turkey, this might seem that this is an anti-Islam group because it is against 3 such countries which are Islam based. So in this context, we might appear anti-Muslim and this will be topped up with being with Israel. Altogether, we are going anti-Islam. It might be perceived like that. And it can also trigger criticism, street credibility deterioration from Organization of Islamic Cooperation and also Arab states. So in this context, the credibility that we have been enjoying, especially in West Asia, that might be directly put in question and the public perception will also take a hit in this context. But at the same time, we have to again look at the strategic advantages that we get. We have to focus on our strategic autonomy. We already have our very good ties with Saudi Arabia. We have good ties with UAE, Iran and also Israel simultaneously. So if we get to choose 2 countries in this context, that means we are sidelining the other. And that can also harm us back. However, when we are talking about this particularly perception of anti-Muslim, inclusion of United Arab Emirates might balance that out, might not. But at the same time, when India is being positioned as a bridge power, that means it is the one which connects the 2 blocks right here. But it is not being considered as a block power. So all in all, we are seeing that India's image might be strengthened in terms of a stabilizer, but it will not be strengthened in terms of being a partisan in this whole situation. And it has equally as much cons as much as the prospects are looking for India. So India would have to very clearly decide that where do they want to side, because for the longest time India has talked about contributing to the multipolar world. India has talked about not following the ideology of the blocs and looking for own strategic autonomy, not compromising on the ideas. India has been neutral. India is the one that since we got independence, we have not sided with the superpowers, we have tried to maintain our own identity. So a lot of questions are in front of us, that how much we will get out of it and how much damage is possible with this given Mediterranean Quad itself. Now in terms of direct consequences or the impact that we will get to see, in terms of military and security, when we are talking about emergence of this Mediterranean Quad, we will not only get joint naval patrols in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean region, we will have enhanced presence here. We will also be part of intelligence sharing, be it on terrorism and maritime threats, which will enhance the security in the Indian Ocean region as well. And we will be well placed in terms of defense technology, be it in terms of unmanned vehicle, be it in terms of unmanned air vehicles, be it missile defense or cyber cooperation, because we have the technological giant that is Israel present here. Apart from that, there will be a direct geopolitical impact to this, because Turkey here will be seeing encirclement pressure. India is rounding up on all sides, either in form of a bloc, either in form of a bilateral engagement and whatsoever. Furthermore, we will also get finally to put Pakistan in the right place, where Pakistan will be diplomatically isolated, which is very much required to ensure that the narratives, especially the false narratives that Pakistan sets up. And another important factor, especially for a huge country like Saudi Arabia, the maneuverability that they have, that will be constrained, that will be limited. There will not be only one single country influencing and maneuvering and lobbying the whole of the region. Apart from this, another important aspect in terms of impact, it's towards the global landscape. This is where US has always been struggling to manage the stability, and in the recent times the unpredictability that has come plugged with US, we don't know. So US might actually welcome this burden sharing that has been taken up, that might be taken up by Mediterranean Quad. And Iran, which has been our long-term energy partner, it also might be ensured that India's presence and India's contribution in this region will be balancing, and it might favor them as well. All in all, that yes, we are getting that India will be part of not just South Asian politics anymore, but also Mediterranean matrix is where India has gone, reached and put a clear stand that we have arrived. Now in this context, in the end, I will only like to highlight one important thing, that all of this is showing a doctrinal shift across the globe, where we are seeing that continents are not going to contain themselves like there. So the shift has come from continental focus to maritime projection. That how strong we are on land, that is okay, but how strong we are in terms of sea, that is also important. From neutrality for India, this is a doctrinal shift that you will particularly see from India's end, that we are moving towards selective power balancing. Another good example here is, for example, if we haven't recognized the regime which is present in Afghanistan, we haven't recognized the Taliban regime, but we are focusing on selective engagement, because that selective engagement is going to bring us benefit. And this is also the time that India is moving from being just a regional actor to the global stabilizer. So in the end, I would like to end it on the note that yes, even though Mediterranean Quad is something that is in process, it might be finalized, it might not be, but India's invite to this is something that shows that there is a doctrinal shift, and it also shows that India's diplomatic efforts across the years are finally paying off, and we are being recognized as an important strategic contributor. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.